Today is the feast day of the baptism of the Lord, when we celebrate the baptism of Christ. And for that, I want to share a folk story I know. It's called The Traveler and the Village of the Old People. In the beginning, the Creator created people and gave them words for their thoughts and their language. He gave them longevity and placed them in a fertile valley at the foot of a mountain. And he waited to see how they would aspire, how they would develop and cross the mountains beyond the horizon. Well, he waited, but the people didn't aspire. They didn't develop. They didn't cross the mountains. They didn't even climb the mountains. They didn't even look at the sky. They never left the village. And so they became old. The Creator wanted to know how this happened. So he became a man and went to the village as a traveler. And right before sunset, all the villagers came to the village square to talk and listen to the traveler. And he talked about the kingdom of heaven and the villages beyond the mountains. And then he said, "Would you allow me to lead you beyond the horizon to see how people live there?" But the villagers said, "No, it's late, and we have become old." Okay, well, let's climb the mountain so you can see the world as it is from the top. No, it's late. We don't have the energy for that. Well, then look at the sky, and I'll tell you about the kingdom of heaven. And they said, "No, we wouldn't understand your story." The traveler became sad and tried to cheer people up. All right, well, let's sing to the glory of God. I'll start and you guys join me. But by then the sun had set, and the people said, "It's late, it's time to sleep." Went back to their huts. And in desperation, the traveler shouted at them one last time, "It is not too late when life is continuous and infinite." But they didn't listen and went to bed. The Creator saw all this and thought and said, "I will take away all the words of limitation, not, far, too high, not understand, impossible, and instead give them the joy of infinity, that they might understand the real law, that nothing is too late because there are no endings, only beginnings." He did so, and he waited for morning to see if the people would cross the mountains beyond the horizon. And that's it. That's all I've got. I don't know what happens next. The story doesn't really have an ending. It's more of a pause. And I picked it for today because baptisms are about beginnings, not endings. So I've got a question for you. When does the story of Jesus Christ begin? It's kind of a trick question because every gospel has a different answer. The first gospel written, Mark, says the baptism of Jesus. That's the beginning. It's chapter 1 of the gospel. And anything before the baptism doesn't really have all that much to do with the story. Well, then Matthew wrote his gospel, and the start for him is the birth of Jesus. So he goes backwards about 30 years. And anything before the birth of Jesus doesn't really have anything to do with the story. Luke goes a little bit farther back. He goes with the conception of Christ, so that's 9 more months. And then John goes just a little bit more back to the creation of the universe, so a few billion years. That's John for you. So every gospel starts at a different period in time. But they all have the baptism, and the baptism is always a beginning in of itself, a renewal. And that's what we enter into with our own baptism, a renewal, a fresh start. Or in Jesus' case, a dramatic fresh start. Most baptisms today don't involve the sky splitting open, and that's probably for the best. And all this is great, because new beginnings are always a part of our lives. Starting a new job is a new beginning. Getting married, you better believe that's a new beginning. Moving to a new city is a new beginning. And all of these things don't cancel out what came before. You can work and love your new job and still appreciate your old one. New beginnings add to our identity. They don't take away from it. Newness doesn't make anybody less of a person. So it is with baptism. It's a renewal, and it adds to what came before. Most of the time, we're talking about a couple of months, sometimes a few years, every once in a while, a few decades. But no matter what, it's still a celebration of future potential. Hope, in other words. And if you've got hope, you just know that faith and love aren't far behind. And those three things propel us ever forward, up the mountain, beyond the horizon.